Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Metal Pack Pod, the industry's leading podcast for the global metal packaging market. I'm your host Alex Fordham, owner of the Metal Packager. You'll be able to find us on metalpackager.com. We're now into our 10th episode of the show, and we have another terrific episode in store as we welcome Eric Slamans of Henkel Corporation to discuss the aggressive growth we've been seeing in the US metal packaging market. Eric is a Senior Vice President for Henkel's Metals Americas business, leading the metal packaging, metal coil and general industry market segments. He has responsibility for metal sales, strategy and profit and loss. With Henkel for the past 30 years, his professional expertise in the metals business includes working in product development, sales, technical service, marketing, key account management and general management. It's a real pleasure having Eric on the show, and I hope you enjoy the podcast, everybody. So Eric, what would you say your favourite metal packaging product ever is?
I would say it's the resealable, the bottle beverage can that came out, a number of years ago. And of course, there's a couple of, you got the extruded as well as, the Aluminatech as well as AB makes the D&I resealable bottle. But that really opened up, I think, a big, opportunities in new segments as well as having that reclosable. I think met a lot of consumers' needs, and that's one of my favorite products that I've seen develop over my career.
Absolutely, and we'll get on to your varied career within the industry because I hear you've got a little anniversary coming up shortly with regards to Henkel, but we'll get on to that a little bit later on. Do you miss those old days? Sometimes guys within the industry of a particular vintage have said that they do miss almost the camaraderie of days gone by. Do you feel that way yourself, or are you very much living in the present?
I would say I'm living in the present. As I said, I think most of the changes are very positive. Got some great leaders in this industry, great, I think, visionaries of where we want to go in the future. So no, I think, for the great improvement, I would say, and I think great opportunities as we move forward in this industry.
And as we chat here, I think both of us are in the comfort of our home offices, so it just shows you the way of the new normal, so to speak. So that's my next question, really. I mean, working arrangements, do you prefer things as they are, sort of? I was going to say post-pandemic. Unfortunately, we're not quite at that stage yet. But do you prefer things as they are now, with a little bit less travel and more home working, more flexibility, or do you prefer things as they were sort of pre-pandemic?
I would say for the most part, it's very positive. I mean, I haven't seen my wife so much in the last 18 months as my previous 35 years. So there's a lot of great things in being able to sleep in my own bed. I traveled around the world for over 30 years. And of course, the last 18 months, for the most part, I've been home. Now, saying that, even though with all the new plants, the new startups, the criticality that we have to play in our share of the market, I still have been traveling, especially domestic. And so I still, with all the new plants, been involved in meeting with a lot of our key customers. And so that's been great to have that kind of both having a lot more at home and doing a lot more video course calls and online, but also we still, of course, have been very busy this past year, especially with all the new growth and startups that have been taking place especially in North America.
Would you say, the next question is proudest achievement in the industry? We'll get on to sort of more your heritage a little bit later on as well. But yeah, have you got a particular standout achievement that you've had over the past few years?
I would say, probably one of the greatest things I think that been involved with at Henkel is all the acquisitions and integrations of all the different companies to be where we are in at this time in the market. I look back, back in the late 90s, we had numerous acquisitions with smaller lubricant companies like DTI and then, of course, in the beginning of 2000s, we acquired Adafina and added their lubricant. We added Novamax back in the late 90s. And then here recently, of course, we continue to expand and where we can bring value. And I was, of course, involved in and was the global IMO leader for the Derrick's acquisition. from GCP, which was formerly WR Grace, and added the sealants and the food coatings and aerosol coatings to our portfolio. So that was very challenging, but also over the last 4 years now, having that team part of the Henkel team has been a great success overall.
Now, that's great to hear. And next question is your biggest challenge for Henkel in the next few years?
That's a great question, Alex. And I would say, really, it's kind of like I think our military motto is being prepared and ready for such a time as this. I know you've heard it probably many times from other executives, Alex, and really, this is a once in a lifetime or once in a generation, I think, opportunity that we have, especially here in the Americas region, but not only here, but globally for the metal packaging, market. And we really have made investments in our people, our plants, and our supply chain, but still it's really making sure that we can supply and make sure we are ready for this tremendous growth and opportunity that we have before us.
Just to end, would like to ask you whether there's an amusing story that you can share about your time in the industry, one that's safe to speak about anyway.
No, that's a good question. And, and it goes back to, I think when I first started in this industry, Alex, I wasn't even 21 years old at the time. And as I mentioned, one of the first plants I went to was up in Walk Hill, it was a Reynolds plant at that time, New York. And I had to fly. I was living at that time in the Chicago area, and I was in TCS, just beginning learning the can industry. And I had to go up to the plant up in New York, in Walk Hill, in New York. Well, what I ended up having to do, because I couldn't rent a car, of course, here in the U.S., because you had to be 21 years old. So I flew into Newark, New Jersey. I got on a short line bus, took the bus up to Middletown, New York, and then I had to go to Rent-A-Wreck, where I was able to rent a car for 2 weeks, Rent-A-Wreck, so I could go in and work. I think I was working 14, 16 hours a day for 2 weeks straight. And that's where I really learned under fire, about making cans in the metal packaging business.
Sounds like John Candy in Planes, Trains and Automobiles, that does.
It really was. It was something to get up to that plant.
So, Eric, just before we get on to the main sort of subject matter with Henkel, as I mentioned earlier, you are celebrating an anniversary. I had a cheeky look on LinkedIn just before the conversation. I believe it's November when you celebrate your 30th anniversary with Henkel. So I think now will be a nice opportunity just for you to introduce yourself and your background within the industry, because it's certainly is a varied and interesting past that you've had.
Oh, thank you, Alex. And no, it has. I've been in a lot of different responsibilities, functions. Most of my career, as you mentioned, I'll have 30 years this November. And I started out in sales, in fact, in the Northeast United States with Henkel and covered a number of different plants. And then I moved on from there and moved to Michigan, where our North America corporate headquarters is, and became then in the marketing and product line management for a few years. And then after that, I went into key account management and covered many of our very important and critical global key accounts. Did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then went into as a business director role. Had some great mentors over the years, and then from there moved on to taking on the global metal packaging business for Henkel, as well as the global metal coil business for many years. And then, of course, now I'm the senior VP for the Metals Americas business at Henkel, which includes the metal packaging, metal coil, and the general industries business.
I'm sure many of our listeners are very familiar with Henkel, but for the uninitiated, can you just provide a little bit of background behind Henkel and their heritage within the can making business as well?
Sure. No, Henkel, a lot of individuals think and ask me, is that the knife company? And I say, no, it's a little different spelling, but close. But no, Henkel it's a multinational corporation based, of course, in Germany, a family-owned business, but really diversified. We have 3 major businesses: a laundry and home care, a beauty care, and then the industrial side of Henkel, which is about 50% of Henkel's total sales, and will probably exceed 20 billion euros this year. So very diverse. In our industrial side, we have 11 global SBU, strategic business units, and of course, metals is one of those key 11 SBUs that make up the industrial side of Henkel. And looking at far as how did Henkel get into the metal packaging business, they really started back in 1982. And what they did is they bought a small company in Ambler, Pennsylvania, called at that time Amchem, American Chemical Company, and they provided the cleaners, pretreatment at that time for the beverage can industry, and that's how they started in the metal packaging business back in 1982 here in North America.
I suppose it's fair to say that the market conditions that we're experiencing now is probably the biggest boom time we've seen in the industry, certainly in my short period within the industry, but your 30 years within the industry, it's fair to say that we've never seen such a period of growth.
That's correct. And really, it's, when I first got into the industry almost 35 years ago, we were still seeing some growth, back from the 70s and early 80s. Of course, but it's even, I think, greater growth and greater opportunities today than even what we had, 35, 40 years ago in this industry. And again, it's a number of different factors. I mean, we are seeing, new beverages. And what I can't believe is now, I think almost 75% of all new beverages are packaged in a metal container, a beverage aluminum can, which is great to see. With all the new hard seltzers, energy drinks, canned cocktails, flavored waters, even canned wines. And I think that's meeting a lot of the consumers' preferences. And, there's a lot of great advantages, of course, as we know, on the aluminum can. Not only the convenience for on-the-go consumers, but it will, prepare and get your drink and keep your drink colder than most all packages. It preserves the flavor and retains its properties, also the long shelf life. We know the sustainability aspect. If it's, recycled, and it's, of course, 100% recyclable. And then the other factors that a lot of consumers don't even realize, the transportability and the stackability, being able to ship so many more containers on a truck or a sea container. And of course, the unbreakable or the durable aspect of the metal container are all attributes that really, I think, are driving and consumers are seeing the benefits of the metal package.
You mentioned earlier that we're in a once in a lifetime opportunity stage within the industry. Can you just contextualize that? I mean, would you say, speaking to different people within the industry, some see it as more of a next 2 to 3 years as a real opportunity, whereas others see this as more of a long-term thing in the next, certainly the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, where would you sit with this growth? Is this a long-term projection, would you say, or more of a short-term, to coin a phrase, make hay while the sun shines?
No, I personally think it's more of a mid and long term. Yes, of course, the next couple of years are going to be extremely busy and full of new plants and new lines expanding. But as we can see these new beverages, and I know there's even other beverages that are out that they're looking at because of all the attributes I said, of the metal package that it can provide, the long shelf life and the, the retaining the properties of your beverage. I think that bodes very well, not only for the short term, but for the mid and long term, as a lot of these new beverages, some have very aggressive properties. And so I think the metal package is not only going to be just short term, but really mid and long term. And as we know, the other emerging countries, even though with the whole COVID pandemic, we saw some reductions in some of the emerging countries, but we've seen that kind of return back to normal the first part of this year. And I think as consumer incomes go up around the world, we'll definitely see greater opportunity and growth in the metal packaging, not only here in North America, but around the world in the future.
I don't know about you, but it's quite nice to have a conversation that where we don't mention COVID-19 for at least 15 to 20 minutes. So I think we did well there. I think we have to pat ourselves on the back there. So, but it's something that's unavoidable, unfortunately. And I think you're right that the pandemic has possibly helped the industry as well with growing consumption in the home. And yeah, as things hopefully get back to a semblance of normality, the growth in middle class, particularly in South America and Asia, will continue to grow. So this isn't very much. I know today we're speaking mainly about the US and North America, but globally, yeah, I'm certainly hopeful that this is here to stay as certainly this growth anyway.
I agree, fully agree with you, Alex.
Excellent. So just wanted to move on. I know we've mentioned the general growth in the industry, but how have Henkel adapted during this period? I know it's been a challenge for us all with changing working arrangements. So I mean, how have you guys managed to adapt to this growth in the past couple of years? And just give a bit of an overview about the latest developments at Henkel during this boom time.
Sure. No, in all of our customers and many other, I know, key suppliers, we've been very, instrumental in supporting these new plants in the startups. Of course, we have trainings and teams, our TCS, our technical customer service teams that go in and help the new lines, the new plants starting up. And of course, we've added numerous new individuals to help all these startups. Not only are we expanding our team to support the growth and we'll continue to do so, but also, of course, we've made some internal investments and, knowing that we have to make sure we have the capacity as well as our key suppliers, making sure they're ready to see all this growth that we will encounter over the next few years.
And just this isn't necessarily important to the metal packaging conversation, but I'm just curious as well. I mean, how has the rest of the business shaped up during this period? I know it's probably one of the advantages for companies such as Henkel that they have such a diverse portfolio, so that if one area of the business is struggling due to issues such as the pandemic, then another area of the business can show some good growth, and it means that it balances each other out. So I'm just curious to see how the Henkel as an organization has coped during the past couple of years.
No, that's a great question, and you're absolutely right. That's one of the great things being a multinational and really well diversified company with, like I say, our three main divisions. It's interesting, last when the COVID first hit, Alex, we saw tremendous growth in our laundry and home care with all the antibacterial soaps, and we had great growth there. Of course, that has come down somewhat, but we did just report the first half earnings here last week, and still we had a double-digit growth overall at Henkel. So great growth. And as you mentioned, some of our other SBUs in the industrial side, like our electronics, I know division with the whole 5G growth, we're seeing tremendous growth in that SBU as well as many other SBUs that help offset some of the impacts that we had in 2020 and as such as the automotive. And of course, automotive is come back this year, 21, as long as we can get the chips required. But also, you're right. We've had some SBUs that were dramatically impacted by COVID, but others that were on a positive. And metal packaging, of course, was one of them where we continued to see growth because of the increased consumer demand at home, especially here in this region in North America, as more people, instead of going out to eat, they went home to consume food and beverages. And we saw tremendous growth in 2020 as well as so far this year in 21.
Yeah, just before we move the conversation on, just my final thought on this. I mean, what would you say the biggest driver has been? I mean, is the growth within the industry pandemic driven, or the anti-plastic sentiment globally, or the growth in a variety of different beverages such as hard seltzer, canned wine, for instance? I mean, what would you say the biggest driver has been for this growth that we're seeing?
I would say the number one growth, I would think it's the new beverages that have come out in the metal packaging format. That's the biggest driver, because we were seeing that even before the pandemic hit. Of course, the pandemic it helped, I think, really more the food metal packaging market. I think, the beverage was already there. So, and it was really being driven, by the new beverage choices that our consumers are wanting to have. And so that's the number. And then, of course, it really does play. I think consumers today are very mindful of the environment, very mindful of the plastics and the oceans and what that is. And so I think that would be secondary. And then thirdly would be the pandemic, in my opinion.
Okay, no, that is interesting. And I think that is, although it's difficult to build a consensus on things, I think from the guys I've spoken to within the industry over the past couple of years, I think that's fair to say that's probably the effect. I think initially we were too caught up on the pandemic driving the huge growth, when actually, the last few years we've been seeing that growth anyway, certainly post the David Attenborough Blue Planet program that brought the idea of the amount of plastic waste to the masses. Really, I think it's just been a general trend, upward trend, so to speak. So no, that's interesting to say. No, so thanks for the feedback there. One question I would like to ask as a sort of caveat to that, I mean, is there a danger of complacency with the industry because of this growth? Because sometimes industries are at their most weakest when they're at their most strongest. If you understand what I'm saying there, that when things are rosy, that's when the strategy planning and also looking into the future and how to improve, they almost fall by the wayside because you're just trying to keep up with the demand. And I think that's been a challenge for us all during this period.
No, a very good point, Alex. And I think we have to be very careful and make sure that we know, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there's going to be there's very smart, intelligent individuals, and even, plastic, of course, manufacturers are looking at, more biodegradable, more creative ways to address the waste issues. And we really, I think, to make sure, which is one of the great benefits of the metal packaging, is the recyclability, being 100% recyclable. And that's one of the things that I think as a supplier, as can manufacturer, and as all of us together really have to drive up the recyclable rates. I mean, I know here in the US, it's, right around 50% or so. And really to really drive the advantages and to keep the pressure, I think we have to drive that recyclable rate up greater. And we can only do this, I think, as we work together as all the key suppliers, and of course get consumers and the whole waste stream to move that recyclability rate up for the metal packaging.
How would you say we do that? Would that be just more on a grassroots ground level, or is there something the industry bodies as a whole could do, would you say?
I think both, Alex. I think, from a ground roots, I think, we got to make it easier for people, get more access so people can recycle and to bring that recyclable rate up. And I think as industry, as I said, the can manufacturers as well as the key suppliers, we got to really try to support and move that recyclable rate up to rates that we see in other parts of the world. We know, like down in Brazil, they have one of the highest recyclable rates, and it's in the high 90s. And again, I can be done, but I think we got to, as a whole industry, as well as at the grassroots, really drive home that key aspect of the metal packaging part of the business.
And as a US metal packaging expert, I mean, from an outsider looking in, is it the case of, due to the complexities of the multiple states that you have there in the US, to have a unified organization? I know you have the CMI who do great work, but it's very difficult to have unified legislation in place in the US. So is that one of the challenges of the US metal packaging market?
It is. All states, in for instance, where I live in Michigan, we have a 10-cent deposit. When we purchase, beverage cans, we have to pay 10 cents. Of course, then I'm making sure that my wife, collects the cans, and I know it's a pain, but we have to bring, of course, the empty cans back to receive that deposit back. And again, there's a few states in the United States that have that deposit, others don't. I think that's, one thing we need to look at, but also it's getting that grassroots and getting access. And again, with all the MRFs and the CMI, as you mentioned, Alex, has done a tremendous job, in highlighting the recyclability and trying to get that rate up. And then again, organizations like that, as well as can manufacturers and suppliers, I think as we come together, we will drive that recyclable rate up, which we definitely need to do.
And yeah, we mentioned sustainability there. I mean, could you just provide a bit of an overview of what Henkel are doing currently to ensure that Henkel is a sustainability company, and also if there's any new innovations that the company have that you can maybe share with us? Any exclusives would be much appreciated at the Metal Packager.
Sure. No, Alex. This year we'll have published our 30th sustainability report. So. Again, sustainability for over 30 years has been very, very important to Henkel as a company. We're committed to leadership and sustainability, and it's one of our corporate values. And as a sustainability leader, we aim to pioneer new solutions while developing our business responsibly and increasing our economic success. So on a corporate level, Henkel's committed to helping our customers reach or even exceed their targets and goals to reduce their carbon dioxide, their water reduction goals, and promoting a circular economy. So really it's enhancing the health and safety across every stage in the value chain. And by engaging and collaborating with our customers, we want to make sure that we bring sustainable solutions to them. And really with our in-depth knowledge and expertise on what we call the front end of the can manufacturing process. Of course, that's from the post lube on the coils all the way, through the metal, the mobility enhancer that we put on the cans before they get the ink on the cans. And it's really that front end process where we really are the experts, and we want to support and optimize our customers' process. And over the years, for example, you ask, what have we done and what have we are going to continue to develop. It's really starting with our post lubricants, that provide both the productivity and sustainability for our customers. We have biostable formulations where, we've really removed all the tank side biocides in this new chemistry that we have at many of our customers. With talking about our mobility enhancers that go on to the cans that help improve the mobility, where the can goes to the decorator, and it allows it to operate at higher speeds and reduces the scrap rates because of that extra mobility on that can going to the decorator. Also, it helps the water sheet off the can surface, leading to less energy that's needed to dry the cans in the oven at the end of the washer process. So those are some great chemistry technologies that we continue to develop and refine and improve upon the help in far sustainable and energy process. In our posted and cupping lubes, really our formulation allows, for process efficiencies, lower tear-offs, which leads to fewer line stops, lower scrap rates, lower tool consumption, and performance, far as aesthetic and bleed through and issues on the can finish of that can body. And then also we have can and productivity boosting solutions for can manufacturers that increase their line speeds. And of course, we have plants now, making over 10 million cans each and every day, or over 3 billion cans a year. So again, uptime, productivity, and reducing their scrap are key priorities of the metal packaging industry.
You mentioned those key priorities there. Is there any priorities that are going to be a factor in the next sort of 5 to 10 years? Certainly the move towards more Industry 4.0, robotics, that side of the industry. Do you see that as being a factor with Henkel moving forward?
Yes, I do, Alex. I think, as we know, of course, the performance is going to be key, but also we know some of the key targets of this industry is water reduction. And I think Henkel, in our area of expertise, can play a very important and critical role in helping our customers meet their ambitious water reduction, with our chemistries, with our process knowledge. Over the next 5-10 years, as we know, that's going to be a very, very important area to focus on.
I mean, you guys as a corporate entity, are you under particular pressure to limit your own individual carbon emissions? I'm just curious to know whether do you have the conversations as individuals within the business to sort of take a lead on things? And do you have to be seen as being a sustainable individual when you work for a company such as Henkel? I'm just curious to know whether there's a pressure as an individual working for a company that do value sort of the environment and sustainability, whether that rubs off on you as a person.
It is. It does, Alex, and it's really completely transforming the way we think about, our resources and really turning waste and emissions into a valuable raw material. We have used some game-changing technology to accelerate the mindset shift and bring the circular economy to life. And as I mentioned, a lot of these where we're trying to use more renewable resources in our raw material makeups for many of our products, which has been really a game changer. Also, an example from a Henkel corporate standpoint, we've signed an agreement with a new wind farm here in the United States to offset 100% of the electricity in our 65 U.S. manufacturing sites to increase the share of renewable electricity here in the supply grid. So that's another example where we're looking to really help offset. And of course, we have some key goals and targets, just like our can manufacturing customers have, to reduce our energy, our water, and of course our waste. And I think we have some great examples of what we're doing at Henkel.
Just want to end on one final question. Really, is at the moment we mentioned that the industry is very much booming, and Henkel have some very exciting innovations going on there. I mean, is the challenge to continue innovate and be experts in your field? I'd imagine that comes with its own challenges. So how are you guys looking to balance the fact that you're so busy with continuing to innovate? Is there how are you guys looking to try and play those two factors off on one another?
No, that's excellent question. But again, innovation in my 30 plus years at Henkel has been really what I call the lifeblood to our success. And it's really making sure we continue to push where we can become, more productivity wise and help our customers become more processed, help their overall total costs, reduce that, because we do know, as I mentioned, there are other opportunities in packaging out there besides the metal can. And we want to make sure that we continue this growth. And that means making it very cost competitive. And that's where we play, and we have, and we will continue to play a key role in helping our customers become more efficient, increase their productivity, and that's really through product innovation, whether that's making more uptime, less tear off, less downtime, where it's making our products where we can lower the oven temperatures, reduce energy, and where our chemistries allow lower water usage. So all those play a key part. We continue to add additional PD resources in the metal packaging area because we know that's what's going to really make the difference over the next 5-10 years, is bringing out truly innovative technologies that not only help the performance and increase the productivity, but also regarding the sustainability and making chemistries that are more recyclable, that are more biodegradable, and are easier to use.
Well, thanks for the conversation today. It's been really, really fascinating. So it's been an absolute pleasure, Eric. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you so much, Alex. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks to Eric for his engaging company. And he's certainly forgotten more about the industry than most of us know, that's for sure. His statement, "It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity," was a bold assessment on how the industry has a real opportunity to drive the increasing popularity of metal packaging due to several factors seen in society during the past few years. The mission statement is a reminder that the boom within the industry shouldn't be taken for granted, and it's important to drive home this advantage. Within the US, this is working to improve domestic recycling rates, communicating metal packaging as the go-to sustainable packaging format, and ensuring a growth plan that looks well beyond the immediate future. Henkel certainly seem in safe hands, and it was interesting to hear about how the company is putting sustainability at the top of its agenda. As an industry, we're lucky to have them. Please do like and share our podcast, and keep spreading the message about metal packaging. And please be sure to visit metalpackager.com.